Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another edition of my team selector ahead of the game at home to Sevilla tomorrow night in the Champions League. The Champions League is officially back. The famous music is back too at the bridge. Unfortunately, we can't be there for these games. The exciting thing about facing all three of our opponents in the group stage this year is it's the first time we faced any of them in European competition. Sevilla, Krasnodar and Rennes. That's exciting, and the unfortunate thing about fans not being allowed to go on the European trips, that's a shame for this year. But it's an interesting group. I think it's an exciting group. I think it's a group Frank Lampard will be happy with when he saw the draw come out, because it gives Chelsea the platform to win this group. And I think Chelsea absolutely need to be aiming to win this group this year. I think they've got the quality to do so. I think Sevilla are the toughest competition we face in this group. And I think it's almost a positive we face them first, because you almost get a barometer of the teams you're facing in this group. And if Chelsea can get off to a positive start, it puts them in a really strong position moving forward, because the games in this group are coming thick and fast. It's Krasnodar next week and then Rennes the week after that, so we'll know a lot about this group very soon in terms of the destiny and sort of the way it's going by the next international break. But in terms of this game and in terms of the way I'd like to see Chelsea and Frank Lampard approach this game, in terms of Frank, I think he needs to be ruthless with some of his selections into this game, because the team news wasn't really revealed that much. If you watched the press conference like I did, I'm sure you were very frustrated by the lack of team news, the lack of questions about team news. Luckily, Dan McCarthy, great account on Twitter, going to be a guest on the channel very soon, confirming that THIAGO Silva is ready for this game after being rested on Saturday after his international duty with Brazil. Of course, feeling very tired, coming back from a long journey. Unfortunately, Edouard Mendy still not available for this game, which is a shame. But I think that leaves Frank with another big decision in terms of Kepa or Caballero. I'll give you my decision on that and my predicted 11 very soon. But let's go into the opponents we have. Sevilla, Europa League winners. That's the big thing from last season. So impressive. Looking at how they've done so far this season, they've won 2, drawn 1 and lost 2 games. They lost their first La Liga game this season at the weekend to Granada. They mostly play a 4-3-3 formation under Julian Lopetegui. They were really impressive against Bayern in the Super Cup, just narrowly losing that game a month ago. Their main point of attack is through the speed of their wide players on transition, using width through fullbacks. And you think about what is one of Chelsea's biggest weaknesses under Frank Lampard, where we concede most of our goals on transition. So that's a worry going into this game, and being overrun in the centre of the park, and Frank Lampard trying to counteract that tomorrow night in a big game. Chelsea, when we look at the last game, lacked an idea of how to evade a press. We really do. When a team either presses Jorginho or just us high, we struggle to play effectively out from the back. The one time we did in that second half was the third goal, Jorginho from deep passing the ball into Werner, where we successfully turned Southampton and made them run back and exploit the space they left, which was really impressive. I hope to see a lot more of that in this game, because if we do, we've got the players up top to expose teams who play a high press against us. The pace of Timo Werner, Christian Pulisic, if Mason Mount's playing, if Callum Hudson-Odoi is playing, if Kai Havertz is playing, there needs to be that ability. And unfortunately, in that second half against Southampton, our best attackers were isolated from the game, which really hurt us in the end. But let's get into my team. The 4-2-3-1, I think Frank needs to stick to a formation. I think even though, of course, we had a disappointing result at the weekend, I think Frank just needs to stick with 4-2-3-1. If he wants to commit to it, commit to it. I don't want to see a 3-4-3, sort of a 4-3-3 again. I'd like to see the 4-2-3-1 stay consistent for at least next couple of games, and if it works, we've got to stick with it, because that was the problem last season, constantly shifting and switching. I think there needs to be a switching and rotating of certain players based on recent performances, but I'd like to see the 4-2-3-1 stay, because I think it can be effective for Chelsea moving forward. In goal for me, it's got to be Willy Caballero. I'd be stunned if Kepa starts, and I think it'd be really poor from Frank to start Kepa again, because Kepa keeps on costing us goals, man. It's obvious now, and this is where Frank needs to be ruthless. He needs to be selfish. He needs to look at the team. He needs to look at the weaknesses of the team. He brought out a stat in the pre-match press conference about the lack of shots his team has faced and given away. And I think that's just evidence based on last season when you looked at it deeper about Kepa letting in so many goals, right? And you can look at the goals on Saturday. You can look at Zuma's part in the second goal. The lack of trust there is so evident, and I don't think it helps the defence in terms of feeling uncertain and shaky. I want to see Willy Caballero back in goal tomorrow, at least until Mendy's fit. Let's hope Mendy is fit for the weekend against United. Then he comes back in. But for me, Caballero in goal. The back four for me starting tomorrow night should be the same back four that started against Crystal Palace, and that is Dave sort of having one one of the fullbacks sitting deeper to help with balance. I'd like to see that. And I think Dave's one of the best we have in terms of defensively 1v1 defending if Sevilla are going to attack us out wide. So I'd like to see Dave start. And he did the press for the game as the captain, so I expect him to start. Silva and Zuma, I want to see that partnership once again. And Ben Chilwell playing so well the other night. I think he could do really well, especially with the way Sevilla press up so high and press their fullbacks up really high. I think he could find a lot of space on that left once again to great effect. In terms of that midfield too, going to be going with Mateo Kovacic instead of Jorginho. I think it's a good time to bring Kova back, and I think you can look at that midfield situation, right, the pivot and the two players within there, and you can look at the flaws of all of them, right, and say there's still a problem. And I think it's about structurally, about not having both midfielders there pressing up the whole time. But I think based on Kovacic being a good press-resistant player, dribbling through tight areas, I think potentially putting passes through to the likes of Christian Pulisic, Kai Havertz, the fast players we have in attack, I think it's about getting the ball to them more consistently in difficult moments of the game. And I think we lacked that in the second half against Southampton. So I'd like to see Kova come back in here alongside N'Golo Kante. I know that there's a concern about overplaying Kante, but I think this is the sort of game you will play him in because it's such a big game. I think maybe against Krasnodar in a week's time, that's a good game to rest him for. I think Chelsea could cope potentially without N'Golo Kante, but I'd still want to play Kante in this game because it's a massive one. But then looking at the three behind a striker, I don't think Ziyech will start the game. I think Frank's comments post Southampton still sort of lean in the direction he's not fully fit to start yet. So instead of going with Mason Mount, because I think there's a great frustration of Mount continually playing out wide, I want to see Callum Hudson-Odoi start. I think Frank's got enough options now to play wide players out wide, and I think instead of Mason, I think Callum Hudson-Odoi should be given a chance here. I don't think he did too much wrong when he played against Crystal Palace, didn't come off the bench against Southampton. I'd like to see Hudson-Odoi get a chance here in a big game for Chelsea. Number 10, obviously Kai Havertz got his first Premier League goal. Let's hope he could get a Champions League goal. That means on the left for me, Christian Pulisic. I was really frustrated about seeing Christian Pulisic shifted out to the right. Of course, he did have a hand in the third goal for Chelsea, but for me, you got to be playing Pulisic in his best position. He's Chelsea for me, best player. You know, he can do so much on that side for me moving forward, and I think he'll have space to operate tomorrow night and be deadly, especially in transition and going forward. So for me, Pulisic has to start, and if he's starting, he has to start out left instead of playing on the right for me and being accommodated there. He cannot be accommodated there. He has to play in his strongest position. And lastly, Timo Werner up top, obviously after his brilliant performance on Saturday, showcasing his clinical finishing, his amazing movement, his frightening speed. This is where he should be playing for Chelsea, and I think he'll be bang in form, ready for this game. Hopefully, if he scores, he'll be able to be on the winning side if our defence are able to keep a clean sheet potentially, which is, fingers crossed at the moment. But I think that Werner looks so good, and I made a point in my Southampton team selector over frustration over Werner not scoring Premier League goals, and it was down to him not really getting any clear-cut chances. And then as soon as he gets put in that central position, he makes chances for himself. He's in those right positions. He looks so dangerous up top. So that's where he will be playing, I'm sure, tomorrow night once again, because he was so deadly against Southampton on Saturday. But that is my team selector for the game against Sevilla. Please let me know your lineups for the game in the comments below. But thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.